The following program paid for by Lifespan Wealth Management. Providing financial advice since 1993. It's time for Your Money with Sherry Goss, Randy Goss, and Jonathan Eisner. And now from the Macon studios of News Talk 940 WMAC, it's Your Money.
Good morning, Middle Georgia, and thanks for tuning in to Your Money, produced by Lifespan Wealth Management. As financial advisors, the main thing we do is provide retirement planning advice and manage our clients' investment accounts. So if you're looking for an investment advisor, call our office at 478-922-8100 to set up your complimentary consultation.
Lifespan Wealth Management has offices in Macon and Warner Robins for your convenience and has been serving Middle Georgia for over 30 years. You can learn more about our services by visiting our website at retirerelax.com. And while you're on our site, go to the special reports section where you'll find several reports that are available to you for free. You can also sign up to receive our digital feeds, which are short videos providing great information relevant to retirement, investing, and matters that affect your money.
We also offer seminars to the community at no cost. So if you're in need of a guest speaker for your church or civic organization, give us a call, and together we can decide what topics you would like us to present to your group. Again, our contact number is 478-922-8100. Good morning, Middle Georgia, and it's great to be back with you on this beautiful Saturday morning. And lots of good things are happening in and around Macon, so be sure to check out Macon365.com. And there are arts and clay classes at the 567 every week. And last week we had our granddaughter, and it was last Saturday actually, and through Sunday. And we had a fun class at the 567 as a corks and canvas class. And no, she didn't drink the wine. She had Kool-Aid. But anyway, it was a lot of fun. And there's concerts and tours and bikes and bike rides and walks and everything else going on in and around Macon. And so I encourage you to go to the Macon365.com and check it out. And if you've never been to a First Friday in Macon, I encourage you to come on down.
It's fantastic.
It's a lot of fun. And on the first Fridays, we start by going to the Macon Art Alliance, where you can have a free glass of wine and meet the artist. And then we go to the 567, which is just down the street, on the same street, on First Street. And right now they have the poodle displays, which are just basically plywood cutouts of the poodle. And they're painted by all sorts of artists and even non-artists. And
I actually did it one year.
Yeah, and you did a pretty good job. I say we did a pretty good job.
Yep.
It was a lot of fun. And then you can walk down to 3rd Street and visit Gallery West, and then over to Triangle Arts, which is a new gallery on, it's at 206 Lower Elm Street. And it's fun to get out and walk around and see all the new shops, the restaurants, and the bars that have opened downtown. Plus, you'll see buildings under construction, which is a real positive sign for Macon. And don't forget to make a dinner reservation somewhere, because they all seem to be getting pretty crowded at this time of the year. And as the weather warms up, it's going to get really busy. So I really encourage you to make those reservations in advance.
Absolutely. So this is a great site to check on a regular basis to stay in touch with events like concerts, art events, musicals, culture events, and even community events. So please go to Macon365.com.
You know, I think y'all know by now that we live downtown Macon. And last week we were coming home from having dinner with friends, and we noticed people going into the building right next door to us. So we asked them what was going on. And the new owner is Jenny Lane Sheridan, and she's opening a new art gallery. And the grand opening is going to be February 28th. And there'll be free food and drinks. So mark your calendars and go to 586 Poplar Street between 5 and 8 p.m. and support this new venue. And as I understand it, it's not just going to be an art gallery. She's going to have events, and she'll it's going to be kind interactive. So give her some support and let her know that she's appreciated downtown.
So she was telling me when I stopped in yesterday that she wants to buy the whole building. You know, she already wants to expand.
Well, I think it's going to be leased because Gene Dunwoody owns the building.
Right. But she already wants to expand to the place next door or something, or upstairs, or she was talking about even growing bigger, and she's not even open yet. I mean, her brain is spinning around.
Yeah, she's high energy, I can tell you that.
It's going to be really fun.
Met her a couple of times.
It's going to be really fun to watch.
Yep.
So what I learned from a client this week about Oglethorpe Power, they expect to break ground on a new combined cycle plant in Forsyth in Monroe County, Georgia. This 2-unit, approximately 1,200 megawatt facility will be built on land they already own, adjacent to the Smart Energy facility, an existing natural gas-fired plant that they operate. This new state-of-the-art plant will be among the highest performing, lowest emitting, and most efficient natural gas plants in Georgia. The development of this new facility will represent a capital investment of about $2 billion with a B in Monroe County. We expect to complete construction and bring the plant online in 2029, they say. This is in the same area where the new Buc-ee's is being built. And because this is a natural gas plant, that is what is the number one power source for the chip
Talking
manufacturing.
about liquefied natural gas, right?
Is that what I just said? No, I don't know. It doesn't say liquefied, but it makes me curious as to whether there's going to be a chip manufacturing plant going up next door to this thing, because there's a pile of stuff being built. I have clients that were in yesterday, and they live just like a mile from there, and they said it's exploding. The entire area is just crazy.
This is Monroe County?
Yeah.
Okay.
So another thing I learned from a client this week, what normal preserve hydrophilus is. I have reviews with our fee clients at least annually, and last year I met with a couple who were both nearing age 80. During the meeting, the husband asked the same questions over and over and just seemed confused and fairly frustrated. I assumed this was the beginning of dementia, and his wife gave me a look that said the same thing was on her mind. They have no children here, just neighbors that can help them out a bit. Well, this couple came in this week for a review, and he was totally a different person. Sharp, funny, in a good mood, and they told me what they'd been through. After their meeting with me last year, he started shuffling his feet when he walked and became very, very forgetful. They visited their doctor, and he referred them to a neurologist. The neurologist did an MRI and found water in his brain and diagnosed him with normal preserve hydrocephalus. They did a procedure where they placed a stent to allow the water to drain from his brain, and it drains into his body. I had never heard of this and wondered to them how many people just assume it's dementia when it's not. Thank God his doctor listened and took action. So if you have a family member that is starting to show these signs, get to the doctor and ask them to do an MRI. The doctor told them that they could help a lot more people if only they would get referred. Can you believe this?
That's just fantastic.
So please, I'm glad you're listening to the show and hearing this, because I've never heard of this in my life.
I hadn't either, but that's absolutely wonderful. All right, here's an investing riddle. Stocks are in a turmoil, but the stock markets aren't. The current stock market resembles a lake with a perilous current swirling beneath the surface. Judging by the S&P 500's 4.2% year-to-date gain, it's hard to glean that it's recently been hit by two big shocks. First, the rise of the Chinese artificial intelligence, DeepSeek, and second, the Trump administration's tariff war. Investors don't seem concerned about the uncertainty either. The volatility index, or the VIX, dubbed the market's fear gauge, briefly hit 18.6 earlier this month, but has since fallen below 15, and the historical average is 19.5. What is truly weird, though, is that while the S&P 500 volatility has been contained, the stocks that are part of it have been bouncing wildly. Drops in some have offset surges in others, and vice versa. Take the tech-heavy Magnificent Seven. Collectively, they are down 0.8% from January 24th close, when China's DeepSeek first spooked investors. But Alphabet is down 8.2%, but Meta is up 10.6%. The danger is that if the trend unwinds, the S&P 500 will take a big hit.
Yep. Dean Kernett, the chief executive of Macro Risk Advisor, said, "I don't think stocks are about to become less volatile anytime soon, but it doesn't take the likes of COVID or the great financial crisis for them to suddenly become more correlated."
Yeah, let me jump in here and provide a little context to that statement. When they do mention correlation, as Jonathan just did, they're saying that stocks are moving independent of each other right now. In that example, Alphabet being down 8.2% and Meta is up 10.6% in the same sector. These two stocks are not highly correlated. They are moving independently. And when they become more correlated, you may start seeing the entire sectors moving in the same direction at the same time.
So there are many reasons stocks become highly correlated, to include market-wide factors such as economic events, God grief, inflation, and geopolitical risks. More investors trading in the same direction can push stocks in the same direction, just to name a few.
In Wall Street lingo, there's been an increase in the dispersion, quote, dispersion, of the equity market. The S&P 500 dispersion index has been grinding upward for a year. On January 29th, it hit its highest level since May of 2022. And this is unusual. The 2022 market was rough. I think we all remember that. Suffering from the, quote, meme stock hangover, if you guys remember that as well. The volatility of single stocks was high, but the S&P 500 was also volatile. Moreover, elevated dispersion should mean that equities are largely driven by company-specific news rather than broad trends. Yet, broad trends are so far the distinguishing feature of 2025. It isn't that investors have sold all AI-related companies and bought everything else. Stocks within the Mag 7 have become less correlated to one another than during the most of the past decade.
Arguably, cheap Chinese AI models will affect American tech giants differently, but correlations are down even when looking specifically at AI infrastructure companies. These are seen as straightforward losers from AI models that don't require as big of an investment in chips and electricity. Connecticut-based Hubble, a maker of electronics exposed to data centers, is down 13% since January 24th, whereas data center owner Equinix is down only 1%. Chipmaker NVIDIA has lost 2.3%. To be sure, these companies have different business models and trade at different valuations. This didn't matter so much in 2023 and early 2024. However, when hopes surrounded AI lifted them all. Also, this isn't just about technology. Wolf Research created a basket of U.S. stocks that contains companies seen as particularly vulnerable to protectionist policies, including Caterpillar, Hasbro, and Dollar General. An analysis of the basket shows low correlations even as the pace of tariff pronouncements from the Trump administration has accelerated. The same thing is happening across sectors of the S&P 500 and within European equity markets.
Right. And so what's behind this dispersion? Perhaps we are in an era of irrational exuberance. Investors react to good news by pumping up the stock market indiscriminately. And then, when the news is bad, they attempt to sort out the winners and losers rather than semestrically selling everything else. Hate that word.
Right.
Yet the latest sentiment survey by the American Association of Individual Investors shows bears outpacing bulls by a wide margin. A possibly more worrying explanation is that traders who are trying to profit from dispersion are themselves exacerbating it. Over the past year, many hedge funds have been using option contracts to bet simultaneously against the volatility of indexes and in favor of volatility of a single stock. This trade has been good to the investors for them so far. For the S&P 500 stocks, it's returned 28% in 2024, which is better than the S&P 500 itself.
There is a clear risk. Reverse dispersion strategies are harder to implement, making these trades one-sided. This can create the very trend being wagered on because banks take the other side of the trade and hedge their exposure by buying and selling the underlying equities. It might also be that the boom in the popularity of short-dated options among amateur traders or the bevy of new exchange-traded funds, or ETFs, that are now using derivatives is further distorting market signals. Regardless, index volatility can be suppressed for only so long, as shown by the infamous Volpocalypse of 2018.
Next up, is the federal government paying Social Security benefits to dead Americans? This article is from Bloomberg. The biggest fraud claim Musk and the Trump administration have perpetuated is suggesting the government is making Social Security payments to people who are deceased, claiming tens of millions of people are receiving fraudulent payments. There is no evidence to support any fraud on that scale, which would be a substantial percentage of the 73 million Americans who receive benefits overall, though the Inspector General has found the agency has made improper payments to dead people on a far, far smaller scale. Musk has claimed the government is paying benefits to people who are 150 years old, but experts have suggested that's not actually the case and may be a quirk of the dated programming language used by the SSA's computer systems. Whenever an American's birth date is in the system is missing or incomplete, the system will default to saying they were born in 1875.
And that makes better sense to me.
Yes, which means they would be falsely listed as being 150 years old. The IG's office has also said tens of millions of people over the age of 100 erroneously remain in the Social Security database, but it's not clear how many actually receive payments. SSA has said it automatically terminates Social Security payments for any beneficiary age 115 years old, and above, in order to root out people who are deceased. So I looked something up. Funeral homes are not required to report deaths to Social Security, and the family can also not report the death and continue getting the check. So let's say somebody dies at age 90, the death is not reported, and Social Security doesn't stop the payments until the person would be 115. That would mean 25 years of Social Security payments went to people who shouldn't receive them. And I wonder if some funeral homes choose to not report to help the family. I would not be surprised. It seems like they could run an audit of the people over 90 who are receiving benefits against a death record somehow. Just a thought. He's going to uncover a big problem here. The fact that they don't have to report the deaths is insane to me.
Let alone
Comments?
somebody who dies at 72.
Right.
Right.
Then you got 40 plus years of
Right, of
payments.
getting a check,
Right.
and nobody stops it. This
That's
is
crazy.
I would say the majority of the funeral homes, though, are operating ethically.
I don't know.
I'd
It
like to
doesn't
think
say.
so.
I'd like to believe that.
I would love to believe that, but I don't.
Right. Well, talking about deaths, here's an interesting twist on scams and deaths. So if you're planning a funeral home, you should watch out for this scam. NBC reports about this growing scam, which involves criminals posing as funeral homes and asking for upfront payments towards the burial or the cremation service. The article tells of a widowed mourner who is almost swindled out of $2,500 via Zelle and Apple Pay. The widow, who has not even had time to bury her husband, is called by someone claiming to be from the funeral home. The caller tells her that there are unpaid charges and this needs to be paid before the funeral can commence. The widow tried to send the money out, but was unable to complete the transaction because it was flagged as suspicious. But when they told her that since she was unable to send the money by Zelle or Apple, that they should use PayPal. Fortunately for her, her son was standing nearby and heard what was happening and told her to hang up the phone. Later, they found out it was all bogus. Here's how the funeral home scam works. Criminals prey on the loved ones of the recently deceased by looking through the online obituaries. Posing as the funeral home employees, the crooks call these people and tell them that they owe a deposit on in-life arrangements.
For example, Atlanta-based TV station reported that grieving families have been targeted by crooks posing as funeral home staffers, claiming that the deceased kin owed money for casket insurance. To make matters worse, the scammers seem legit because they're able to mask their real phone number by spoofing the number of a local funeral home. The caller ID will leave the name of the funeral home. It is highly likely that a grieving person in a grieving state would fall for the scam. So how can you protect yourself from these scammers and this terrible scam? First and foremost, be suspicious of anyone calling, asking you for payment, especially in times like these. When someone's grieving, they're more likely to believe the caller is legit, and the grieving person does not want to be the one to hold up the funeral for failure to pay a simple bill.
Secondly, understand these criminals make a living scamming people every day. This is their job, and most of them are pretty convincing. We've experienced it. But you need to be equally good, if not better, at sniffing out the scammers. You can do this by never trusting a caller that you don't know. Never trust a caller you don't know is rule number 1. If someone says they're from the funeral home, hang up and call them back on a phone number that is posted on their website or other verified sources.
Absolutely.
Remember that the caller will stress the urgency of the situation. According to the FTC's guidance, they say to resist the pressure to act immediately. Honest businesses will give you time to make a decision. Anyone who pressures you to pay or give them your personal information is a scammer, or at least you should assume they are. Another key point here is how the caller asks you to pay. Legit businesses are not going to ask for immediate payment to a PayPal account or other online payment platforms or gift cards. If they do, you know with certainty then that you are speaking with a scammer.
We would encourage you to prepay your funeral expenses, whether it is a regular burial or a cremation. That takes a lot of stress out of the funeral. And if a scammer calls you, then you already know they're a scammer because your funeral is already prepaid. Oh, and it is less expensive if you prepay. So we've already done our prepayment. We did it last year.
Yep.
We're going to be cremated, and we have the paperwork. It was like $4,200 for both of us, and we're locked in permanently for life.
Yep.
So all I have to do, our son can call McCullough Funeral Home, and they will come pick us up.
And they came to our office and
I did the paperwork.
right here.
Right. It was amazing. Anyways, Doge is searching for wasteful spending. It isn't hard to find. I came across a great article in the Wall Street Journal Thursday about the efforts of Doge and all the people doubting the amount of money the Doge team has found that is being spent in improper ways. And what I find refreshing is that now agencies are beginning to self-identify billions in improper payments.
And I think that is absolutely wonderful. And I don't know why they haven't been doing this for years.
Because nobody was gunning for them.
Yeah, well, that
Nobody
maybe
was
that's
after them,
true.
and so now they're having to come clean.
Yep.
However, the article points out that identifying the waste may be the easy part. Doing something about it is the hard part. Every year, agency reports posted online document billions in improper payments, which include fraud, but also underpayments, duplicate payments, payments to ineligible recipients, or for ineligible goods or services. According to the Government Accountability Offices, they can also include correctly paid amounts that didn't follow regulations, such as a contract missing required signatures. I don't understand this.
Here's what we know. The top lines in the most recent fiscal year, the agencies that reported their improper payments identified $149 billion in such outlays, or 3.7% of the $4.1 trillion that was paid. Last year, more than 90% of improper payments were overpayments. As far back as 2002, Congress required agencies to estimate and report improper payments every year. The law was strengthened in 2010, 2013, and 2020 on the eve of the pandemic. The estimates come from statistical samples of payments that agencies check in detail using methods approved by the Independent Inspector General for each agency. Some agencies don't have to submit these reports, including the Central Intelligence Agency. In 2024, the median accuracy rate for payments across 68 programs was 95%. Pandemic boom improper payments mushroomed during the COVID-19 pandemic when Congress, the first Trump administration and Biden administration, pushed out new relief programs and expanded existing ones to cushion the shock. Some required little documentation and had weak fraud protection.
Agencies have tried to recover some of the overpayments. In 2024, they targeted $33.5 billion as potentially recoverable and succeeded with about 2/3 of that, or $22.6 billion, including some from previous years. One reason overpayments persist is federal agencies' lack of control over some spending. Agencies frequently cite programs jointly administered with states, such as Medicaid, SNAP, unemployment, and insurance and highway programs. In those programs, state workers determine payment eligibility based on a mix of federal and state rules. Federal agencies report that they have training and technical assistance to help states prevent improper payments.
In a related issue, the Social Security Administration says that it must rely on people to report changes in their earnings that can affect eligibility for Supplemental Security Income, or SSI. It is seeking approval to get that information from payroll service providers instead as a way to cut overpayments. Daniel Bryan, Executive Director of the Project on Government Oversight, an independent watchdog group, said one of the largest sources of overspending and one of the toughest to grapple with is how the government handles contracts. Since the federal government is often the only customer of a certain product or service, such as weapons, it is difficult to know what price to pay.
And that allows for price gouging. Where does DOGE come in? In addition to targeting bloat, President Trump and Elon Musk have put a big emphasis on rooting out fraud. The Musk-led Department of Government Efficiency, or DOGE, says it has amassed $55 billion in estimated savings as of February 17th through a combination of fraud detection, contract and lease renegotiations, grant cancellations, asset sales, workforce reductions, and regulatory savings. About 20% of those savings come from actions taken on contracts, according to the DOGE website. The initial actions DOGE has taken could change as it focuses on the government's largest programs, such as healthcare and military spending. Improper payments don't always mean fraud was involved. Agencies tallied $7.2 billion, or 5% of improper payments, as court-confirmed fraud in 2024. You've been listening to Your Money, produced by Lifespan Wealth Management with your hosts, Sherry Goss, Randy Goss, and me, Jonathan Eisner. If you'd like to contribute to the show, you can email randy@rfmoney.com with a question or topic that you'd like us to cover in a future broadcast. Our number is 478-922-8100. We have offices in Macon and Warner Robins for your convenience.
And you can find out more about us by visiting our website, retirerelax.com. Lifespan Wealth Management has been serving the Middle Georgia area for over 30 years, helping people like you achieve their investment and retirement goals. And if you're in need of a financial advisor, please contact our office at 478-922-8100.
We also offer seminars to the community at no cost. So if you are in need of a guest speaker for your church or civic organization, Give us a call, and together we can decide what topics you would like us to present to your group.
Again, our contact number is 478-922-8100. Now back to the show.
Very good. So next up, AI assistants. What are they and can they help you? I met with a client last week and she has an Alexa and uses it all day. Alexa, what is the weather like? Alexa, what is on my shopping list? Alexa, can you call my sister? Alexa, when is my next doctor appointment? She loves this thing. So what else can AI do for you and how does this work? Some AI assistants charge $20 a month, but others are free. First, you need to decide what you want them to be able to do for you.
Well,
I'm going to interrupt for a
Sure.
second and talk about Alexa in my household.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're pretty wired
Oh,
at
with
your
all
house.
your-
I'm very
Poor
wired,
kids.
and sometimes I forget how smart I've made my house. And so, I'll tell my one of my kids is bad about leaving TVs on, leaving his light on in his room, and I'll say, Sam, you left your light on in your room, and he'll be sitting out on the couch, and he'll go, Alexa, turn Sam's light off, and he doesn't have to get up, and I'm like, man, I thought that was going to be a little harsher than that. Or he'll be like in some other wing of the house, and I'm like, Sam, you left the TV on again. He goes, Alexa, turn living room TV off. And I'm like, man, I forgot that I made all this.
You
this
know,
capable.
Dad, you could just tell Alexa to cut it off for me.
Right. That's probably exactly what he's thinking. So anyway, my kids have outsmarted me with the smart stuff I put in the house.
Yeah. Now, tell us what happens when power goes out in your house.
It's not good because have I told you guys about the smart
Yes,
lamps?
That's why. That's
So I've
why I
probably
asked you.
got no less than 15 lamps in the house that are smart bulbs. And while it's nice to be able to lay in bed and say, Alexa, dresser lamp off, or our fans are on Alexa, so we can say, Alexa, fan speed 4 if we're hot. Well, when the power goes out, all these things, all the bulbs and the lamps start flickering to their
Oh my gosh.
original factory color. So I got to reset all of them, get them back to the hue, in the room that we want.
And you can't say, Alexa, reset my
Correct,
lamp. Right.
correct, because it disconnects from the Wi-Fi. And so my kids, all 4 have, these lamps in their room. And so at 4:00 in the morning, the power goes out and their bulbs just start flashing like this ridiculous 1978 yellow color in their room. And of course, I have to go in and reconnect everything. So it's nice 95% of the time. The 5% of the time is when my kids either outsmart me with it or when the power goes out.
All right. Well, AI can help you with brainstorming. So when you need an idea, say from what to cook with what ingredients you have on hand to finding the perfect birthday gift, ChatGPT is known for creative suggestions. All you need to do is create a free account to unlock more personalized replies and ideas.
Or are you short on time? You can draft emails quickly, learn a new function on your phone, or get a summary of a long online document with Microsoft's Copilot. Copilot.microsoft.com.
And I really like Copilot.
I know you've tampered with it a good
Mhm.
bit. This one excels at speeding up your to-dos. And here are some real-life examples of how Copilot might help you. And I found a long list. So this is only 3 from about maybe 50 examples
Yeah.
that I found. Again, as we always say, you can email me, Jonathan at RF Money, if you'd like a list of how Copilot might be able to help you. But here's 3 examples. One is measuring employee performance. Data that has traditionally taken a day or more to compile by a human, Copilot can do in a few hours to measure the efficiency of employees. It can analyze, this is the second one, it can analyze sales data. Using Copilot to analyze sales data can speed up the decision-making process and increase sales and efficiency. This one you'll like, Randy. Compliance. Copilot,
Yeah, I love compliance.
as our compliance officer, I figured you would appreciate this one. Copilot can automate financial reporting, ensuring accuracy and compliance with regulatory requirements.
We can't trust that.
No, probably not.
There's no way.
Randy, your job is unchanged.
Right.
Sorry.
Job security.
Yep.
Anyways, need in-depth information for everything from easy to clean paint brands for your redecorating project to the best herbs to grow this winter. Turn to Gemini, gemini.google.com. Powered by Google's search engine, it provides detailed answers in a flash. All you need is a free Google account, which you can set up at accounts.google.com/sign-in. So I signed in, which is very easy and free, and I asked it this question: what are RFK's priorities while he is in office? The response was that they couldn't answer the question and for me to go to Google search instead.
Said you needed to be vaccinated first.
Right.
So then I asked, how many data centers are being built in America? And here is the answer that appeared in seconds. It's challenging to give an exact real-time number of data centers currently under construction in the U.S. due to the dynamic nature of the industry. However, I can provide you with some key insights and trends. Number one, significant growth. The data center markets in the U.S. is experiencing explosive growth driven by factors like the increasing demand for cloud computing, AI, and data storage. Reports indicate a surge in data center construction activity with substantial investments being made. Number two, key trends. Hyperscale data centers. There's a significant increase in the construction of large-scale, hyperscale data centers by major cloud providers like Amazon, Microsoft, and Google. Regional concentrations. Certain regions in the U.S. are seeing particularly high levels of data center development, often due to factors like access to power, land, and favorable climate conditions. Power demands. One of the largest factors driving data center construction planning is the ability to provide the massive amounts of power needed for these facilities. Data points. Reports indicate that the amount of data center supply under construction in North America has seen a very large increase. Also, there is a large increase in the amount of megawatts being produced by these data centers. So this is pretty generic information, but it is fascinating that you can just do a search that quickly and come up with a whole bunch of information, like maybe writing a report for your high school class.
Yeah. I think back to when I was in college and the internet was a relatively new thing. And so all my generation heard was, oh man, for you to do reports, it's so easy compared to my parents, for example, who had to actually go rent books from the library, read them thoroughly, find the part that they were researching. And I mean, it must have taken exponentially longer for my parents or you guys to do a report than it did me. Yeah. Well, now these kids can search in Copilot and it can write the report for them.
Yep.
And so
hopefully they have a brain in their head and they make it their own story instead of just taking this garbage and giving it to a teacher.
I know.
Because that was the whole thing was okay, but it wasn't very deep. So they need to learn how to think
Well, what you have to
deeper.
learn how to do is ask it a question, read its responses, and then ask it
Apply
deeper
that.
questions.
Yes.
Right.
So
To
ask
go
it-
deeper,
yeah,
deeper.
deeper.
For
Okay.
sure. Yep. Don't use DeepSeek though.
Right. use it on your boss's computer.
Exactly. All right. So to summarize, while a precise number of is elusive, it's clear that data center construction in the U.S. is booming with significant investments and rapid expansion. It's pretty fun. To save money easily, you can ask, what are healthy dinners I can make for a family of 4 under $10? Be as specific as possible to get the best ideas. AI assistants are helpful, but they do make mistakes. I guess this is maybe what you were talking about, Sherry. It's a good idea to confirm their answers. So ask for their sources and click the links it gives you to verify the information is accurate.
I just thought it was so funny that it told me to just Google it because I didn't know.
That is funny.
That is pretty good.
That's the default answer.
So how the world's biggest online dollar store got sucked into Trump's trade war. Xixing, I guess that's how you pronounce it.
Yep, you did good.
Is a thriving manufacturing hub located near the mouth of the Yangtze River. Despite having a population twice the size of Chicago's, the city isn't well known outside China, but people on the mainland recognize it as the town of scissors and blades. There are about 80 factories that specialize in hair clippers, pet grooming equipment, sheep shears, kid-friendly scissors, and the rest of the globe's sharp-edged needs. Inside a yellow brick factory in the southern part of the city, Ma Da walks the floor, surveying machines as they spit out dozens of steel blades a minute. His company, I can't even pronounce that word,
The Clipper Blade Company.
ClipperBladeCompany.com, has been making tools for salons and barbershops for almost 40 years. It had long sold its products to more recognizable razor brands after printing their name on the parts, but that began to change after COVID. We saw this opportunity, Ma says. It was a combination of two things. One was temporary. People were cutting hair at home and adopting new four-legged family members that needed to be groomed. So Ma started a consumer brand for the company's products, KBDS, and added a line of pet clippers. The other big thing that happened was Temu.
Yep. In just 2 years, Temu has become the world's biggest online dollar store. Its homepage perfectly captures the vibe. Visitors are bombarded with random items, faux leather, car seat covers, frog costumes for cats. Randy, they have frog costumes for your cats.
I wanted one for me.
Knockoff, I know what you're doing for Halloween now
You
this
bet.
year. Knockoff handbags, supplements, whatever. You can find it on Temu. All kinds of banners, countdown timers, and prize wheels throwing out deals, price drops, and limited time offers. Not content with simply making the stuff the rest of the world buys, China found in Temu an effective way to sell that stuff directly to consumers. In frenetic, candy-colored commercials aired during the 2023 and 2024 Super Bowls, Temu invited customers to, quote, shop like a billionaire, describing prices so low that anyone could buy as much as they wanted without even thinking about it. And people do. With 50 million U.S. shoppers a month, according to research firm Sensor Tower, it's the biggest e-commerce app after Amazon. eMarketer Inc. estimates Temu will generate $30 billion in U.S. sales this year, a milestone that took Amazon more than 10 years to reach.
You know, I did purchase some things for my wood shop off of Temu. And what was so funny about it is when I got them, they were about half the size of what I would have purchased off of an American site.
Really?
Even the rulers were half the size. They looked normal size on the website, but they were tiny. It was the strangest things I've ever purchased. They really did look full size on their website.
Online.
But
Did
they
you
were
send them back?
no. I just thought they were funny as heck. So
Yeah.
they were so cheap they weren't worth sending back.
Right.
So anyway, Temu though isn't a startup. Its parent company PDD Holdings has been operating an online marketplace in China since 2015 and periodically trading places in recent years with Alibaba Group as the country's most valuable e-commerce business. Temu is the result of a careful study of American shopping habits and artificial intelligence systems for hyper-personal product recommendations. To get the word out, PDD spent like a billionaire on ads and subsidies to bring down prices. One other dynamic helped fuel Temu's meteoric rise in the U.S., Donald Trump. The tariffs he imposed on China in his first term, most of which were retained by President Joe Biden, raised the cost of all manner of products.
But Trump left untouched a near-century-old loophole that exempts international packages worth less than $800 apiece, which many of you have heard about already, the de minimis exemption. That ability to ship items directly to the U.S. duty-free is a big part of how Temu can undercut the prices of Amazon and just about everyone else. Instead of opening a bunch of warehouses near customers' homes, Temu boxes up orders in China close to the factories where they're made, loads them all into cargo planes bound for major cities, gets them delivered right to customers' doorsteps. We'll be right back. Whoops, we already did message.
halftime.
Whoops.
Biden pledged to eliminate the tax rule that makes this possible, but never did. Trump has now taken up the cause, and he ordered the loophole to be suspended as part of the tariffs that he placed on China on February 1st, and then backtracked days later when customs officers were unsure of how to handle the mountains of packages piling up at the U.S. airports. For now, Temu exists in a nervous limbo similar to the one that Chinese video app TikTok is in. Temu's continued prosperity isn't up to Trump alone. Amazon and TikTok Shop are increasingly vying for the same budget-conscious shoppers, and Temu, while showing encouraging signs of customer retention, is still spending on marketing at a rate that may be difficult to sustain.
But at least for now, Temu is winning over more customers and sellers. Back at the Blade Factory, with the aroma of hot grease in the air, Ma explains that Yongfa started off selling on Amazon, but working with Amazon, he says, can be crushing. After manufacturing and packaging its products, Yongfa needed to box them all up, arrange their transport to the U.S., and pay a tariff to unload at the port. Then it has to pay for the products to be shipped to Amazon warehouses across the country. The fees go on. Advertising for visibility on Amazon.com, packaging and local shipping to customers, a penalty if warehouse stock isn't replenished promptly, a penalty if inventory sits for too long, a 15% commission on every transaction. In all, Ma says, Amazon's fees eat up at least half of each sale.
Wow. And selling on Temu is more straightforward. Yongfa ships its products to a nearby Temu warehouse in China, and that's about it. Temu handles promotions, packs its blades when orders come in and ships them by plane to the U.S. For the final leg of the delivery. Temu pays the seller a flat rate. There are a few fees and no storefronts to set up and maintain. They say they are not professional. They are not a professional e-commerce company. Temu is an easier model for us. Here's what that means for shoppers. A 3-pack of detachable KBDS blades costs $70 on Amazon and $36 on Temu. Amazon shoppers will get their order in a day or two, whereas Temu will take 7 to 10 days. Either way, the factory pockets the same amount of money. Amazon's 90% markup largely reflects the cost of fast delivery, which has long given the company its competitive edge. Temu is proving there is another type of customer out there.
To see Temu as a mere peddler of cheap products is to misunderstand the appeal of a dollar store. Besides the low prices, browsing the shelves can elicit the feeling of hunting for antiques at a flea market or discovering a rare gem at the record store. The goal isn't necessarily to find something valuable, but to find something interesting. That's part of why Dollar General Corporation, the Dollar Tree, have more locations in the U.S. than any other retailer. Temu replicates the character of a neighborhood discount retailer, mixed with the aesthetic of the prize counter at the video arcade. The seemingly random assortment of products and the general appearance of disorganization is part of the point. It is shopping for sport.
There's another element of the Temu buying experience that you won't get at a traditional dollar store. By the time an order arrives a week or more later, customers say they've also already forgotten what they even bought. Tearing open the white and orange plastic bag or beat up cardboard boxes can feel like unwrapping a little gift from your past self. This ritual has inspired an entire video genre on Instagram and TikTok known as the Temu Haul, where customers record themselves opening their latest finds. All that said, the low prices are a really important part of the equation, and for most of what Temu sells, those bargains wouldn't be possible without the Tariff Act of 1930. Congress passed the law to protect American farmers and manufacturers from foreign competitors while they struggled through the Great Depression. 8 years later, lawmakers realized customs agents were wasting time and irritating wealthy American travelers by taxing every souvenir brought home from overseas. So the U.S. added the so-called de minimis rule. The Latin phrase refers to something of such marginal value that is considered insignificant. At the time, the limits were $1 for personal items and $5 for gifts mailed to the U.S. from overseas.
Yeah, and officials kept bumping up the numbers over the years to account for inflation while leaving the underlying rule undisturbed, ignoring the vast changes in the scope of the global commerce. While the world has versions of de minimis, the U.S. is the most generous. Barack Obama was the last president to increase the threshold to $800 in 2016. In the UK, it's $170. During Trump's first term, in which the trade policy with China was one of the greatest fixations, the president never mentioned de minimis. In a separate article, both Biden and Trump administrations have expressed concerns that fentanyl could be coming in through the de minimis packages and have lamented the loss of the potential terrorist revenue.
So that's going to be interesting to follow.
Yep.
Next up, the biggest mistake you could make with an old 401k. When you change jobs, you'll need to decide what to do with your old 401k. A common choice is to roll the old 401k into an IRA, which can be a great option. But according to a recent Vanguard study, 28% of investors who did a 401k rollover into an IRA were in cash 1 year later. Worse yet, the majority didn't realize their retirement savings weren't invested, and most workers who started in cash stayed in cash for at least 7 years.
Wow. Just think of the lost years of compound interest. Retirement accounts are often ignored, especially when spread across multiple institutions. Rolling an old 401k over to an IRA is not an overly complex process, but often investors are too quick to move on to the next thing. People are simply more focused on getting into the new job and forget about the old 401k. Here are a few tips when it comes to managing your retirement accounts. First, keep cash in the bank, not retirement accounts. How can you invest in the future if you're not invested at all? One particularly alarming aspect of the study was how long account holders stayed in cash after a rollover. The youngest investors were most likely to remain in cash after 7 years. Conversely, the older investors returned to the market most quickly, making the right choice, and making the right choices can pay off due to the benefits of compounding.
When asked about the cash holdings in the Vanguard study, some did report they intentionally stuck with cash, but most just didn't realize they were not invested. Other respondents said that they were overwhelmed by the investment options or simply just never got around to it. Regardless of whether you lack the time or investment acumen, the result is the same. Thankfully, it's a solvable problem making time for yourself. The bottom line is very simple. If you don't take the time to do it for yourself, nobody else will either. Checking in on your investment accounts periodically can prevent a lot of problems. Although not right for everyone in every situation, target date funds can be a good solution for people who don't have a lot of investment experience, particularly if the alternative is to never invest at all.
A target date fund is a diversified investment mix based on your age and the year you expect to retire. When you're younger, the exposure to equity will be much higher, perhaps 90%. As you get closer to the target retirement date, the fund automatically gets more conservative. This means shifting away from stocks and more heavily into bonds. Here's a problem that I see very often. People join the military and have a target date of when they will retire from service.
Yeah, and if they are on a 20-year track and they got in when they're 19,
Right. They're only 39.
that's right.
So when they sign up for the thrift savings plan, they choose the fund that is the same year they will retire from the military, even though they'll only be in their 40s or 50s. These funds get very conservative as you get close to the target date. So make sure if you're using one of these funds that it aligns with when you truly will retire.
That's right.
Yep. I've seen some 401k plans that offer just about exclusively target date funds to the plan participants. And I think generally speaking, target date funds are actually a pretty good thing. They're easy, or at least a lot easier for investors to understand, and they're normally pretty inexpensive too. One downside to them is a possible lack of diversification, or at least just the capability to adjust to the particular investor. When you buy them, you're buying the underlying holdings in the fund, and you have zero control over what those are. If, as an investor, you happen to like one particular asset class, let's just say real estate, for example, and you want more real estate in your portfolio, well, target date funds, the amount of real estate that's in them, that's it, period. You're not going to have more real estate than what's in those. But they are great to be used as a user-friendly turnkey solution for inexperienced investors or people who just don't want to look at the markets.
Yeah, and working with a financial advisor is a good option too. Your plan at work gives you access to an advisor. So if you need help making decisions on what to invest in, please give them a call. Time is money, and there's a cost to delaying good financial decisions or prolonging poor ones, especially when a 401k or an IRA is a significant portion of your wealth. Choosing the right target date fund or other more aggressive options needs to be considered. And I doubt that a financial advisor with a fund company is going to ask you about your will, your power of attorney, or your beneficiaries, or paying off debt and other very important issues. So call us for an appointment if you need more guidance than you can get from the company's plan advisor. And as we discussed last week, procrastination is the thief of time and money. Don't be your own worst enemy. If changing jobs, first understand what options you have for your old retirement plan. Generally, your choices are staying with the old plan, rolling it into an IRA, converting it to a Roth IRA, or transferring money to a new employer retirement plan. Unless your old 401k plan is less than $7,000, the company should not be able to force you out of the plan. So you have time to decide. Don't just choose a plan by accident.
A cash, yeah.
Don't just use cash by accident. I'm sorry.
If you cash out your 401k on purpose or by accident, you generally have 60 days or about 2 months to reinvest the money in another eligible retirement plan like an IRA to avoid penalties from the IRS. If you don't roll it over within the 60 days, the withdrawal can be considered taxable income and may incur an early withdrawal penalty if you're under 59 and a half years old, which, as I'm sure most people are aware, is 10 additional % on top of taxes. To avoid potential issues with managing the withdrawal, you can often request that your 401k plan administrator directly transfer the funds to your new IRA. And this is what we deal with mostly when we roll old 401ks, is called a direct rollover.
I recently met with a person who had statements for multiple old 401ks, and she hadn't looked at them for years. Many of the accounts had a lot of cash and bonds, and she is years from retirement. So please, if this is you, get all those statements together and call us and make an appointment with Jonathan or myself. Making sure these accounts are invested properly could be life-changing.
I want to point something out somewhat related to this. Cash-heavy 401ks are not the only potential problem. Sherry, you can attest to this. 401ks that have been sitting 20 years, 25 years, invested exactly the way they were 20 plus years ago, those can become problematic too. And I'll give you an example. Recently sat with a client whose old 401k, several $100,000, has gotten so incredibly off balance because some of the asset classes in it performed very well while others didn't. And so this guy is probably 65 years old, and 40% of his portfolio is in small cap and mid cap funds, which is a huge, huge portion of his portfolio for somebody who's 65 years old to be in small and mid cap funds. Well, it's because those particular asset classes perform well enough over the years that that part of his portfolio got bigger and bigger, and then maybe other parts like real estate or bonds or something didn't perform as well. And so they were the other 60%. And so meeting with this guy was important because he had no idea that he's in a very, very, for his age, a very risky portfolio with 40% being in small and mid cap. And so, reallocation of those funds is going to be a critical thing for this guy, but he had no idea. All he did was have this old 401k that just sat and was doing what it was doing. And so I say all that to say having too much cash in there is not necessarily the only problem, but having an advisor or somebody who knows what they're talking about look at your old 401k might be a good thing so that they can give you some advice about how to reallocate the funds appropriately for your age. So just wanted to point that out. Financial literacy crisis. Imagine driving a car without a basic understanding of the rules of the road or even how to operate it. It's a scary thought. Here's another circumstance, one that's very real. Many Americans are making financial decisions with minimal financial knowledge of investing, budgeting, and credit. The TIAA Institute conducted a survey on U.S. financial literacy asking 28 basic questions about retirement savings, debt management, budgeting, and other financial matters. The average respondent answered only about half of the questions correctly. Another recent survey conducted by the Census Bureau found that almost 40% of Americans say that it has been somewhat or very difficult to pay for usual household expenses in the last 7 days. It's been said that knowledge is power, and if that's true, then too many Americans lack the power to control their financial futures. Financial success rarely happens by accident. It's typically the outcome of a journey that starts with education.
Yeah, and please take advantage of the information on our website. Go to retirerelax.com, then resources, and then special reports. From there, you can learn about everything from budgeting to retirement planning to coping with caregiver, coping with being a caregiver. And then there's the My Life book pages, which are free to download and print. This guide walks you through the steps of estate planning and pretty much everything you need to understand. Next, click on other resources and you will find links that will take you to new sites that are absolutely free. My favorite is the Wall Street Journal, and it's literally separates factual reporting from opinion, and it's free. So if you want to read the Wall Street Journal, just go there and you can read it every day for free. The more informed we are, the more informed our financial decisions can become. And if you'd like to come in for a free consultation about your overall financial situation and goals, please call us at 478-922-8100, and we would look forward to meeting with you. And we have about 3 minutes left, y'all.
So you want me to read this article?
Yep.
Okay. Do we need a new word for retirement as fewer people give up work? Most dictionaries define retirement as being the point that a person gives up their active working life, but as years tick by, how many people will that word actually define? As we reach old age, for some reason I hate that term, certain things become more likely, and in the past that included giving up work and perhaps taking things a little easier. But successive studies and surveys reveal that that is becoming less common. The latest to highlight the new reality of whatever retirement should be called is a report from the staffing platform Indeed Flex, which found that 88% of baby boomers are still working. That includes those in the 59 to 65 age group, like me and Randy, who are likely still be working historically anyway. By the way, I turn 64 next month.
That's right. But those aged 66 to 77 years old who might have spent a lifetime expecting to have stopped working by then, things are not the same as they have been for the previous generation of older Americans. Not all of those who are working into their 70s are forced to, and many are working part-time or in a temporary role. But more than 1/3 of respondents said that they are not sure what they could do and that they could retire this year due to the economic environment and the high cost of living. And when considering what they would prefer to do in the so-called retirement years, 83% of respondents said something temporary and perhaps in retail, hospitality, or business support. More than half said they would prefer to work 10 to 20 hours a week, and 27% said they would prefer to work 20 plus hours, and just 14% said that a maximum of 10 hours per week would suit them.
So to me, this report explains how wrong we are thinking about retirement. In most jobs, you do not have the option to stay employed part-time, and this is what needs to change. We have all these great older workers who have a wealth of knowledge, and they could benefit the company they work for by working part-time and working the hours they want to work. We need more flexibility, and you would not have to offer this to everyone. It could be offered to people who are hard to replace or people who could assist in training new employees to do their job. I think we're really missing something here.
You know, we've got so many talented people who have retired that are sitting around doing nothing that I bet that they could go back and get a part-time job where they came from. You know, that,
I met with one just last week. She just retired from her job, and she's an absolute genius.
yeah.
And she needs to be doing something, and she's studying on her own, but not working. And somebody's really missing the boat not having her on their staff, at least part-time.
Well, thanks for listening, everyone, and we will look forward to connecting with you next week.
Thanks for listening to Your Money, produced by Lifespan Wealth Management. As financial advisors, the main thing we do is provide retirement planning advice and manage our clients' investment accounts. If you're looking for an investment advisor, call our office at 478-922-8100 to set up your complimentary consultation. You can learn more about our services by visiting our website at retirerelax.com.
And if you'd like to contribute to the show, you can email me, randy@rfmoney.com, with a question or a topic that you would like for us to cover in a future broadcast. And we look forward to connecting with you next week. Have a great weekend, everyone.
Securities and investment advisory services offered through Osaic Wealth Incorporated, member FINRA SIPC. Osaic Wealth is separately owned, and other entities and or marketing names, products, or services referenced here are independent of Osaic Wealth.